Hey, Inside Crypto people, welcome back to the latest episode of Bitcoin Weekly, the last episode for April 2024. The Bitcoin halving is done, and what has happened? Bitcoin currently sitting at $66,000 at the moment. There was a lot of craziness over the weekend when the Bitcoin halving happened, with Bitcoin average transaction fees spiking to $128 per transaction. That is terrible. We talk about an executive who explains how Web3 Gaming is going to help eSports, and there's a lot to say about that over there. Fidelity says Bitcoin is no longer cheap. We talk about the metrics they're mentioning and why those matter and maybe why those don't matter. Stacks begins its two-step rollout for the Nakamoto upgrade, which is its own Nakamoto upgrade. Last, we have a positive story and ties into some of the VC stuff we talked about before. Shiba raises $12 million with a private token sale. And what are they going to do? They're building a layer 3 blockchain. So we could talk about all those stories and more on today's episode. Let's jump into today's Bitcoin price. Bitcoin currently sitting at $66,132.61. Bitcoin dropped a fair bit right before the halving, even post the halving. It's come up a little bit. I believe it was at $67,000 when I woke up this morning. So about 8 hours later, it's dropped a little bit. So post halving as well, we've talked about this on the Twitter & Co dashboard thread. After the third halving, it took something like 1,300 days for Bitcoin to reach a new all-time high. So 1,000 days is about 3 years. So maybe it's going to be the same amount of time for us to reach another all-time high. I remember we saw Bitcoin roughly about $77,000 at an all-time high. But again, like lots of macro stories going on. We've got Israel and Iran. We've got Venezuela. We've got loads of other sort of stories happening around the world. Palestine and Israel, of course, is still going on. So lots of Middle East instability that's definitely affecting things. We also had huge flooding rain in Dubai. We've had another sort of natural disaster in Guangdong in China. We've had another earthquake yesterday in Taiwan. So all of this is impacting the overall macroeconomic outlook. And with that being said, let's talk about today's first story. Billionaire Mark Cuban issues post-halving Bitcoin warning amid unprecedented crypto fee price chaos. The Bitcoin price has so far defied warnings the halving could trigger a raging fire sale, bouncing back from under $60,000 per Bitcoin this week to around $65,000. We already know this is $66,000. As I mentioned before in the beginning of today's video, the average price was about $128 per transaction. People are complaining about that on social media and on Reddit. And of course, if you're trying to transfer $60 of Bitcoin and you're paying $60 in transfer fees, that's messed up. But as of recording this video, I'll show you over on the next screen that the average transaction fee for Bitcoin is about $25 at the moment, which is not too bad. But still, if you're trying to get into Bitcoin as somebody who's buying $10, $15, $20 of Bitcoin at the moment, that's going to be fairly difficult. I definitely suggest to you, as much as you'd like to transfer the Bitcoin from an exchange or wherever you bought it from, maybe wait until the Bitcoin fees drop a bit more, or wait until you have a large lump sum of Bitcoin and then pay that transaction fee to transfer it. But make that decision for yourself. Do your own research. People suggested over the last few days, right, this is another good look for Bitcoin. Not to mention, after they having loads of protocols, my coworker was mentioning Ruin launched as well, which is about ordinals and inscriptions and NFTs and Bitcoin. So this sort of again, of course, caused the price for Bitcoin transactions to skyrocket to that high of $128 on average per Bitcoin transaction. Now, most of that has died down, so down to $25, which is great, but I still think I think $5 to $10 for Bitcoin transaction is fine for most people. But then again, now we can talk about stacks and the transactions fees on there and the Lightning Network. So definitely check out the story and let me know, did you have any horror stories of Bitcoin transaction fees? And let's move on to today's next story. Today's next story is Web3 Gaming executive explains how blockchains will expand the esports economy. In a recent discussion, Tom Copero of Olympics described how blockchain technology is improving in-game rewards and record keeping. So we know esports is okay, but not okay depending on who you talk to. I'm definitely of the believer that esports is struggling, again, just because it's such a high skill industry or game, right? You have someone who's playing Counter-Strike, you have someone who's playing League of Legends. It's just not there. You have the commentators, you have the people who are talking about this, but it's just like the average person playing League of Legends or they're playing Dota 2, it's, yeah, I'm not going to be the best player. I think in terms of basketball or football, right, there's a chance a lot of people believe if I practice hard enough, I can be the next Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant or whoever it is. I'm not a big sports person. How blockchain could help, I've always talked about this as well, is that it's just the idea of ownership. But in terms of esports, there's definitely, for competitive gaming, reducing the amount of cheating, the amount of botting that happens. In a game that I play, Marvel Snap, there's a huge amount of botting at the start of a season where people are gaming the system and gaining rewards and earning cash and stuff. Like when you start off a new season or a new week that the card's been released, you're usually playing a lot of bots, which kind of sucks. You want to play real people, of course. And as far as record keeping goes, that could definitely help. Again, in Fortnite, there's loads of cheats. There's loads of companies which make cheats, and Epic goes after them. But still, it's in order to see in a transparent way, this person won or Ninja won this game or someone like that could definitely help. All right, today's next story is Bitcoin no longer cheap. Fidelity revises a medium-term outlook for Bitcoin. Fidelity Digital Assets maintained its positive short-term outlook for Bitcoin following the first quarter, but revised its medium-term outlook based on several metrics. Fidelity Assets has revised its medium-term outlook for Bitcoin from positive to neutral, which is a little bit scary, right? Remember, Fidelity has the second largest Bitcoin ETF, citing several metrics that suggest Bitcoin is no longer considered cheap amid a potential build-up of sell pressure. In its latest signals report released on April 22nd, Fidelity Digital Assets cited that the Bitcoin yardstick, or hash rate yardstick, which works in the same way as the price to earnings ratio is used in stocks, except in this case, it is used to determine if Bitcoin is undervalued. Fidelity noted that the yardstick remained between a -0 and a 0 deviations from the mean of 51% in the first quarter, meaning there were 0 days on Q1 where Bitcoin was considered cheap. This would suggest that Bitcoin is now trading at fair value, said Fidelity, which has now revised its medium-term outlook for Bitcoin to neutral. Other metrics it cited that added its neutral outlook was the fact that long-term shareholders are adding to sell pressure, while 99% of addresses are in profit, which could incentivize selling. So this could incentivize selling. I think there's a lot of new money in Bitcoin, which are the people who are going to take short-term profits, especially when you're seeing news about Iran, especially when you're seeing global macroeconomic news, especially when you're seeing inflation news in the US, where the Fed is like, yeah, we're probably not going to cut rates. That being said, this is interesting. I think Fidelity, of course, is trying to take a very conservative look when it comes to Bitcoin. I always suggest do your own research as well. Definitely check out this article from Cointelegraph. It's very interesting. It shows some of the metrics as you're seeing in this sort of price chart. Midterm 1 to 5 years, overall conditions neutral. I'm going to show some of the sort of positive outlooks and the negative outlooks. You decide which ones you want to believe. I still think the overall factors for Bitcoin are positive in terms of supply and demand. That being said, people are emotional. People, of course, are going to believe what's happening in the world. People are going to be worried about natural disasters, about shipping issues through the Red Sea and that sort of stuff. All of these conditions combined with inflation, combined with natural disasters, combined with Middle East instability, of course, that's going to make people want to sell their Bitcoin or sell if they've made a little bit of profit just in case Bitcoin does take a nosedive. Again, not financial advice. I'm keeping my Bitcoin again, but I would say a little bit above a typical average crypto person. So for me, I definitely see the long-term outlook. I definitely see that six-figure price at some point in the future. People have suggested that this year. I believe Bitcoin won't hit six figures this year, maybe at the beginning of 2025. Again, depending how macroeconomic situations play out, but we'll see. Next story is about Stacks, and we've talked about Stacks a few times on Bitcoin Weekly. You have to talk about Stacks. Stacks is the premier layer 2 solution for Bitcoin. It's talking about their latest Nakamoto upgrade, of course, honoring Satoshi Nakamoto. Basically, what this upgrade is going to do is improve the performance of Stacks, because as this article mentions, Stacks was linked to the way Bitcoin's production was working, which slowed down what they were doing. Now they're going to de-link it, so potentially Stacks could increase transaction output and make their layer much faster, allow for different transactions to happen on Stacks, which is wonderful because, again, in some places there are really big proponents of Bitcoin maxis, as you like to call them. They believe that Bitcoin could be doing a lot. It could be the layer for DeFi and finance. Check out the 21 Shares analyst call, the last analyst call before the halving, see what people say there, because our researchers did make some good points that some people are thinking that besides NFTs, DeFi could be happening on Bitcoin, and DeFi could be happening in a big way, whereas most of it is happening on Ethereum layer 2s at the moment. So if you're interested in Bitcoin, if you're a fan of Bitcoin, definitely check out Stacks if you haven't already done so. And this is just a positive sign for Bitcoin scaling up the network so that it can be beyond digital gold. It can be beyond a store of value. It can be a place that some people go to do transactions, that to rely on the security of Bitcoin, which is a proof of work network, which is very secure, at least more secure than some of the proof of stake networks that do exist out there at the moment. Final story is Shiba Inu raises $12 million in token round for its new blockchain. So Shiba Inu has raised $12 million via the Tree token to develop its new privacy-focused layer 3 blockchain. Investors include Polygon Ventures, Mechanism Capital, Big Brain Holdings, and others. So let's highlight a few things here. This is a layer 3 blockchain because Shiba Inu already has its own layer 2 blockchain. The Tree token, according to Shiba Inu, serves as the utility and governance token of its new privacy-focused layer 3 blockchain, which is being built on Shibarium, which is the layer 2 blockchain, of course. Shiba Inu began raising for the round a few months ago and concluded it earlier this month. Kusama said, Kusama is the guy behind Shiba Inu, it's the lead developer as well. What are they going to be doing on this layer 3 blockchain? One of the things as well is they're going to be using a new homomorphic encryption technology, right? Which encrypts transactions at all levels of the blockchain. This is interesting. I wonder who actually wants this. But some of the curious things about this, right, is it's going to comply with international law. This is going to be like a blockchain but this is not a new trend. We know about this on Inside Crypto because we've talked to so many people who are like, yes, we're complying with KYC, AML regulations. We don't want governments to be like, who's using this blockchain? How is it going to happen? I think this is the way moving forward, right? Is you want high throughput blockchains. You want blockchains that are compliant, that the governments are going to accept and say, okay, yes, this can exist as long as we know who's using this. As long as when we come to you and say, I want to know who's using this blockchain, and you can say, yes, this is blah, blah company. This is ABC company. This is XYZ company. This makes a lot of sense. Of course, Shiba Inu, right, is the largest meme coin in terms of top 100, crypto tokens on the market. There's a lot of people who use it, lots of people who own Shiba. We'll have to see how this works out. I still don't believe there's a huge amount of actual users of Shiba. There are people who own the token, but they don't really do anything with it, right? Like I know loads of people who just bought it because the dog is cute, right? That's the symbolism of a meme coin. So that's it for today. Hope you enjoyed today's stories. As always, I enjoyed delivering them. Lots of stories, lots of happening in the crypto sphere post-halving. Let's see what's going to happen with Bitcoin. Let's see what's going to happen with crypto. What do you guys think? Next week, we'll have another Bitcoin Weekly. And then the second week of May, so not the first week of May, we'll have a new guest talking about something similar to June and Flipside. Again, we've spoken to Flipside before. That was really fun. So that'll be on May guest again. As always, if you have a suggestion for a guest, I'd love to hear about that. And thank you guys as always for supporting us. Thank you guys for checking out TikTok. Thank you guys for checking out previous episodes. Thank you to our past guests. And we will see you guys same time next week for more crypto, more news, more Bitcoin. Take care, guys.